Where are they gone?
I don't know.
You don't know? So who ate them all?
Someone come round and they just ate them all.
Someone come round and ate the cakes?
Yeah.
So someone broke into a home and ate Mr. Kipling's angel slices. Didn't take the TV, didn't take, you know, some jewellery. They took these cakes.
And it was a black man.
Oh my God!
Oh my God, Brandon! Early light. What? You're not done. You're not done.
Okay,
Take a seat.
what?
What so proudly we hail by the twilight's last streaming, whose bright stripes and Next. I'm not done. Next. Then I pick you out. Oh, no.
Don't touch me.
This? No, Miss G.
Okay.
Miss G. Or the breath hearts we want.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, the slave codes have been around as long as America. In fact, it's older than America. The slave codes were created 100 years before America even existed. But America was built on and around these codes. They were created to criminalize black people, specifically black men. They based their racism off of us being savages. We just walk around all day with our low IQs brutalizing each other. Like how they say, well, black people commit 50% of the crime. No, black people are convicted of 50% of the crime. But they use those talking points to justify racially profiling us. And there are plenty of black people that co-sign and say, yeah, well, what about black on black crime? We can't be worried about the police. Look at Chicago. When in reality, they don't even have any suspects. For all we know, it could be white people or undercover cops. It's not like it'll be the first time in history that happened. But they use those talking points to justify their own savage brutality. It's classic projection. And they've always used the same old talking points. They're not really creative to come up with new talking points. During slavery, they could kill us, beat us. And their court system said it was justified. But a black person knowing how to read is a criminal. After the 13th Amendment, they passed laws like peonage, which means they can put you in prison over debt. And when they put you to work, because the 13th Amendment says after you're convicted of a crime, you're a slave, they charge you more for being locked up than you made doing hard labor. So you would never get out of prison. They created vagrency laws, where they made it illegal for you to be homeless. America made it illegal for us to be poor after they took everything away from us and created a system to keep us in poverty. They burnt your house down, burnt your job down, wouldn't give you a job, and then arrested you for being poor. And I don't know what year Jim Crow ended, even though it did stop being as overt as it was. But we still see examples of the vagrancy law in effect today. In Los Angeles, the place with the most homeless people. And it's because of many different reasons. But the majority of those homeless people are black people. A young 21-year-old homeless brother, Jonathan Hart, who was unarmed, was shot to death by a security guard in Wal-Greens. So let's go back and see how this young brother ended up getting shot by a security guard.
Detectives in Hollywood tonight are still sorting out a deadly shooting inside a Hollywood Wal-Greens store. A security guard opened fire on a homeless man he suspected was shoplifting, but some people say the shooting was unnecessary. Tonight, KCAL 9's Chris Holmstrom is live in Hollywood with an update for us. Chris.
Yeah, I just spoke with the twin sister of the man who was shot and killed inside this Wal-Greens. She says he's 21-year-old Jonathan Hart, but she still has so many questions as to what happened, and she's demanding answers from the LAPD.
Do not
touch him.
Cell phone video shows a man identified by friends as Sky, who they say was shot and killed by a security guard at this busy Hollywood Wal-Greens. Many customers had no idea why the store was closed.
This is shocking, like, poor guy.
This guy was with Sky when the shooting happened. He says the guard went up to him and accused him of stealing items. He said Sky pushed the guard, they argued, then the guard pulled out the gun.
He saw him, the security guard reaching, and then he just shot him. Yes, and he had a taser too. I don't know why didn't use his taser.
His friends say Sky tried to make a run for it, and it was one shot that killed him. This man, who did not want to be identified, has been living on the streets of Hollywood for years. He says it's not uncommon for security guards to carry guns.
It's scary. That's what I think. Most of them aren't qualified. He should have just went in the back room with him, given him his ID and his name, and he would have got kicked out of here, that's all.
The LAPD would not go into detail about what happened, but they say they are investigating how this escalated from a simple theft to a deadly incident. At this point, no charges have been filed against the security guard. As for why the guard had a gun, that too is unknown, but experts in the security business say as long as the security guards are properly licensed by the state, they can carry weapons, and oftentimes do. And Wal-Greens released a statement that reads in part, "We are deeply concerned about this incident and the loss of life. We're gathering facts and fully cooperating with law enforcement in the ongoing investigation of the incident. The safety and security of all of our customers and employees is our top priority." As for the family, they plan on having a vigil out here in Hollywood tomorrow afternoon.
So this young brother was minding his own business in Wal-Greens when out of nowhere a security guard came up and accused him of stealing. And people that try to justify it say, well, he was homeless, he was suspicious. But many black people have had the same experience, homeless or not. Hell, they wouldn't even let Oprah in the store because they thought she was going to steal. Now, according to the family lawyer, this brother Joshua Hart and the same security guard got into it earlier, probably because he was following them around the store. And his lawyer said he even spoke to the store manager about it. And then he went on about his business and kept shopping. So after the security guard started accusing him of stealing, the brother Jonathan Hart got upset, which I understand. And then him and the security guard pushed each other. So then the security guard reaches for his gun, and that's when Jonathan take off running trying to get out of the store. Now, mind you, a security guard is never supposed to open fire, especially if somebody is running away from you and is unarmed and not posing an immediate threat. They're supposed to call the cops like everybody else. But this security guard chose to pull his gun out and shoot this brother, hitting him in the neck, killing him.
An accused shoplifter is killed inside a Hollywood drugstore, but questions are being raised about the security guard who pulled the trigger. Some people are asking why the guard had a gun in the first place.
And we have cell phone video that may give detectives some crucial clues.
CBS 2's Dave Lopez is live at the Wal-Greens in Hollywood tonight. Dave.
Well, Pat, this Wal-Greens is right in the middle of Hollywood. Sunset and Vine is still closed. It'll reopen tomorrow. You can see a number of people inside. Investigators have long gone. They have also taken security video. And you asked the poignant question, why does a security guard in this type of setting have a weapon? We couldn't get an answer to that. We can tell you the man who was killed, we have been told, is homeless. He also suffered from schizophrenia. And the security guard has fully cooperated and has not been arrested.
Is he going to be all right?
Cell phone video shows a man identified by friends as Sky, who they say was unarmed, slumped on the floor of a Wal-Greens at the corner of Sunset and Vine in Hollywood. Witnesses, at least 5, told detectives the man had been shot by a security guard inside the store. Sky was rushed to the hospital where he later died. You plainly saw the gun.
Yes, and he had a taser too. I don't know why didn't use his taser.
Nathan, who shot the cell phone video, did not want to give his last name. He said he was with Sky when the security guard went up to him and accused him of trying to steal items. He said Sky pushed the security guard. They argued, and then
he saw him, the security guard reaching, and then he just shot him.
How many shots were fired? One shot?
Yeah.
That was it?
Yeah.
Sky turned around to make a dart for the door.
This woman, who said she's a friend of Sky and was with him, told the same story. Sky shoved the security guard, went running toward the door, and was shot while running away.
Sir, Bro.
Do not touch him.
The cell phone video shows a security guard leaning over Sky, and then he yells for people to get away.
Ma'am, back up.
We don't know if that's a security guard who did the shooting, and we wanted to know, why is a security guard armed inside a store like this? LAPD wouldn't answer that question either. However, experts we talked to in the security business said as long as the security guard are properly licensed by the state, they can carry weapons, and oftentimes do, depending upon where they work. The only requirement by state law, that weapon must be clearly visible. It cannot be concealed.
Oh, the gun is exposed. It's on his hip.
B told me he goes into this Wal-Greens almost every day, and he often sees the security guard with his weapon. Another customer told me the crime rate in this store is high.
But I see guys come out here with like armloads full of stuff, just walk out the door.
LAPD confirms Sky did not have a weapon. His friends say he wasn't stealing. And there is security video inside the store that the LAPD has. And of course, that video has not been released. This statement late this afternoon from Wal-Greens, which reads in part, "We're deeply concerned about this incident and the loss of life. We're gathering facts and fully cooperating with law enforcement in the ongoing investigation of the incident. The safety and security of all our customers and employees is our top priority." Again, no mention about the security of the security guard, why he had a weapon in the first place, how long he's worked here with a weapon, and how long he's been licensed to carry that weapon. All those questions unanswered.
Now, according to the security guard, he yelled freeze, but when his brother didn't comply fast enough, he said he was left with no other choice but to open fire. Now, since 1672, it has been legal to kill a black person resisting arrest. And since then, it probably hasn't been 100 people convicted of killing black people during an arrest, regardless of the circumstance, or even if they didn't deserve to be arrested at all. Of course, they're going to deputize the security guard in this situation. It's easy to be a cop. It's even easier to be a security guard. A security guard might as well be a sworn-in officer when it comes to a black homeless man, especially if he's young. Meanwhile, we see black security guards or even off-duty black cops get shot and killed for trying to stop an active shooter. But this security guard armed at Wal-Greens, like he protecting a Wells Fargo safe or something, shot this unarmed homeless brother in the neck and killed him. He wasn't shoplifting. He was unarmed. The police told his family he had his ID in his hand when he got shot. But he was guilty of the crime of vagrancy. So they protect the security guard. They won't even release his name. And of course they do their best to make every excuse to justify the shooting.
Well, it's quite an emotional news conference today by the attorney Carl Douglas. I'm standing right outside his law office, and he makes no doubt about it. He said this should have never happened, and that's why he's asking for such a large amount of money. He's also demanding that District Attorney Jackie Lacey charge the man who has not been publicly named, and he has not been arrested or charged yet. He says that a crime was committed, and all we're getting from the DA's office when we ask what the status is that it's under investigation. But here's Mr. Douglas today.
John was not shoplifting when he was shot.
John is Jonathan Hart, also known as Sky to many of his friends. And the attorney representing his family, Carl Douglas, says that because Hart was shot while unarmed inside a Wal-Greens in Hollywood, he's demanding for his family $525 million in damages.
Is he going to be all right?
Cell phone video taken moments after the shooting.
Ma'am, back up.
The armed security guard who shot him said that Hart was shoplifting and that Hart had shoved him. Douglas said Hart and the guard shoved each other once. Hart started to run. The guard yelled, "Freeze," as he pointed his gun, and Hart continued running towards the door.
The guard fires one shot, striking the man in the back of the neck.
Douglas said the autopsy he's seen proves that. As Douglas was talking, behind him, Hart's twin sister broke down in tears.
This is a case of a civil rights violation, and we are calling for a boycott of Wal-Greens.
Douglas was highly critical of Wal-Greens' policy that he alleges places armed security guards only in neighborhoods frequented by minorities and the homeless.
I dare say where the mothers of the Wal-Greens executive shop, I'll bet there's no armed guards there.
Wal-Greens confirmed that the security company employed at the Sunset and Vine store and the security guard who did the shooting have been fired. No other comment.
This is his family,
who surrounded Douglas and chose not to answer any questions. And Douglas made it clear that Hart had a loving family and he was homeless by choice, trying to find himself is how he put it.
I gave this family a pledge that Jonathan Hart will not have died in vain.
Again, late this afternoon, Wal-Greens issued another statement saying that they are cooperating fully, would make no other comments whatsoever. As for the reason for so much money, the attorney said, because we have to get their attention.
Now, the DA and the police spokesman, Drake Madison, said they're still investigating. Wal-Greens blamed the security company and fired them. But this isn't Wal-Greens' first incident. In 2008, Wal-Greens had to settle a racial discrimination lawsuit. They had to pay $24 million and 10,000 black people for racial discrimination. Wal-Greens isn't new to this. But what I don't understand is, where's the outrage from the LGBTQ community? Right? They have time to be upset about people's jokes from 10 years ago that they already apologized for. But I rarely hear them speak out about black people who are gay that get shot. This brother Jonathan Hart was in the LGBTQ community, but I haven't heard one person speak out about that. Do you know how many racist gay people there are? They don't get a pass. America never passed no gay codes. They may not have been able to get married, but our marriages wasn't even recognized in America for the longest time. And the problem is, they feel as though they can check us. And every time something happens or somebody says something, then they're upset. But if a black person is murdered, whether he's gay or not, you don't hear a word. While they look for black comedians to be mad at, they should be upset about this unarmed gay person who was shot by a security guard in Wal-Greens because he was accused of stealing, which he wasn't. Which is a stereotype that goes with being black, not being gay. But those aren't the stereotypes that they're mad at. But name a time in America where a straight black man has had more privilege than a gay white man or a straight black woman. There are white people in the LGBTQ community that enjoy white privilege and practice racism like everybody else. And they want us to condemn our own for words when they won't even condemn their own for actions. I'm not concerned about movements from white people that claim they're oppressed. There are gay black people. I'm more concerned about them being racially profiled because they're black before they're gay. I'm not worried about white women because my concern is black women. They are seen as black before they are as women in this country. At the end of the day, we all we got. And until we get on code, it's going to continue to be the way it is.
A case of possible racial profiling at Wal-Greens. 2 women say they were unfairly searched because of their race. Local 10 News reporter Todd Tongan live now at the store in Miramar with more for us today. Todd.
Calvin, literally just moments ago, I received the informational report from Miramar Police from that Tuesday night incident. And in it, it says that they received a call about a shoplifting in progress. When they got here, the manager was outside and told them a store employee saw these 2 women putting items in their big purses and then trying to avoid security. But when they were approached as they came out of the store, that just wasn't the case. And the women say that the Wal-Greens employees zeroed in on them the moment they stepped foot in the store.
They instantly grabbed her purse out of her hand and was like, come with us. Before they even looked in the plastic bags of stuff we bought, they threw her purse on the ground and started just going through her purse.
Crystal Davis and her business partner Santana Neal say they were wrongly accused of shoplifting from this Wal-Greens on Miramar Parkway on University Drive, and they believe the Wal-Greens manager may have racially profiled them.
And as soon as we walked in the store, we kept hearing the alerts, the security check the floor, security check the floor. Whoever alerted for security check the floor definitely profiled us, maybe in a racial standpoint.
They say Miramar Police didn't ask them any questions and the manager didn't have proof of a crime.
And it's like, wait, what? You saw us pay for all these items on camera and you're still coming after us? It was scary. And then
the women say the 3 Miramar police officers escalated the situation by thoroughly searching one of their purses in public, but police say they had permission.
And I'm communicating to the officers, this is really embarrassing, that we even have to be going through this right now. You have the bags, you have the receipt, and you're opening up lip gloss.
The women posted on social media saying just being racially profiled at Wal-Greens because they don't want it to happen to anyone else.
They weren't helpful, they weren't remorseful. The officers were just like, you're free to go.
Yeah, no apologies.
No apologies. And in a world that we live in today where we're supposed to be so progressive, that really hurt.
Miramar police insist that they had permission to search that purse. They also say they didn't conduct the search in private because the women were not being arrested. They weren't taken into custody. Meanwhile, we've reached out to Wal-Greens multiple times today. They say they're aware of the issue, that they're looking into it, and they told me they'd have a statement for us, but so far, nothing.
She's an attorney for the city of Detroit, heading up their Civil Rights and Ethics Division.
And now she claims she's fallen victim to racial profiling as she was shopping in the suburbs.
7 Action News reporter Kimberly Craig is live in Grosse Pointe, where the embarrassing situation took place. Kim, fill us in.
Well, it happened yesterday here at this Talbot's, and what happened inside left this seasoned attorney, who has actually prosecuted actual criminals, embarrassed and shaking.
Well, we responded to a request for Grosse Pointe City under a mutual aid agreement to investigate a potential shoplifter at Talbot's.
It was the last thing she expected, to be accused of shoplifting. So was it racial profiling? You be the judge. Yesterday afternoon around 3:30, Portia Roberson, well known in Detroit's legal and political circles, walked into Talbot's here on Kercheval in Grosse Pointe to return 2 items she purchased online. She told the clerk about the returns, but said she wanted to look around first. Roberson tried on some pants, and when she was walking out of the fitting room, there were 2 police officers there asking to search her bag. On her Facebook page, Roberson wrote, quote, "I tell them to go ahead and search and point out the items and the receipt. He tells me it is clear that someone made a mistake and then takes my bag to the store manager to point out that everything that I have in my possession I have purchased."
The officers talked to her. She was very cooperative. It was very short to the point. She was returning some items, had receipts, and we cleared.
Portia Roberson is a former Wayne County assistant prosecutor who has worked in Washington, D.C. for the Department of Justice. And the irony that she might be the victim of racial profiling is that this year, this daughter of a now retired judge was appointed to lead Detroit's new Department of Civil Rights and Ethics. On her Facebook page, Roberson said her heartache over the embarrassing situation wasn't really about her, but that if it could happen to her, it could happen to others who might not know how to handle the situation, and report it to Talbot's corporate headquarters. Action News contacted Talbot's, and a spokesperson issued the following statement that in part reads, quote, "We take the claims made by Ms. Roberson very seriously, and we are currently investigating all aspects of the incident. We acknowledge that the police should not have been called and acknowledge that Ms. Roberson's personal belongings should not have been searched. This action was contrary to Talbot's policies and practices and was an isolated incident that does not reflect the Talbot's culture. All customers are welcome in our stores." And Portia Roberson was not available for comment today, but we understand that Talbot's CEO reached out to her directly and apologized.
We were having a conversation.
And if
we were having a conversation, what did we say? This gonna be on Twitter, y'all don't stop. Exactly. What did we say?
I'll just say
Please repeat what we said.
What did we say?
you were talking about sex in public.
What exactly did we say? What exactly did we say?
Because that's how you acting.
What exactly did we say?
Sex in public?
I mean, that's what you're.
That's what you screamed out loud.
I said
that you were having sex in public.
No,
that is not what we said.
Where is your hearing aid today, honey? Because you're not hearing real good.
I said, Tara, try this on because this looks like something Eartha said. I don't want to be compared to Eartha Kitt because she
I just
had sex.
This is what you guys
that's
do.
what I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. What
this woman any longer, please? I want us to stop engaging with this woman.
Let's stop.
Let's have finish with the head.
Let's stop engaging with her, please. Let's stop.
She can't hear.
Thank you.
That's very clear.
I understand you're an abuser. I understand you're abusive. I understand you're abusive and you make up lies on the spot. I understand.
I understand that you're ignorant.
It's okay to be abusive. Yes, name call me. Call me. Keep telling me. I'm ignorant. Keep telling me. Name call me. I'm going to write. Should I write it down? Should I write down all the negative things that you guys have said about me already in our interaction?
No, she's the microaggression.
Personal attacks. I didn't realize that personal attacks were normal. I also didn't realize that talking about sex in public was normal. I didn't realize all these things.
Stop talking, Tab. Stop talking.
Go get some.
Please stop talking to this lady.
I mean, her question.
Yeah, we have a problem.
No,
yes,
she needs to move
ma'am.
on.
We were standing here talking, and I made a reference to Eartha Kitt. No,
I can't.
Ma'am,
I can't.
I made a reference to Eartha Kitt, and my friend said, I don't want to be compared to Eartha Kitt because she had sex in the movie with. And then she
specifically
So
say.
she
It's
said.
okay. I know you're trained on lying. I know you're trained liar.
Yeah.
I know you're trained liar.
See,
Good job.
Good job. We are together.
You're perfect for the court system. You guys should all go to court.
Now we're perfect for the court system.
Because you're trained liars.
Can we just?
We asked her to move. We said please leave, and then she attacked us.
Actually, they said they were going to leave. They actually said they were going to leave. And when I said good, that I was glad that they were leaving because they were.
Howdy, Texas Highway Patrol. The reason for your stop there, you swerved. Is it? Are you? Yes, over on the shoulder. Are you paying attention to me or?
I don't think I swerved.
Okay. You got your driver's license with you? Where you headed to today? Headed home. Okay. Where's home at?
I don't want you in my vehicle.
Okay.
For the record, I do not want Officer Sergeant
Trooper
Smith to search my vehicle.
Okay.
Do not want Trooper Smith in my vehicle.
Okay. All right. Wait right back down there. Is your car locked?
Yes.
Let me see your keys.
No, you can't have my keys.
For my safety, I'm fixing to put your hands behind your back, okay?
No.
Listen, for my safety, I'm fixing to take your keys, okay? I'm going to place them on my car. I'm not getting into your car, okay? I'm not getting into your car. That's for my...
keys?
I'm going to make sure you're not going to drive off, okay? What kind of work you do? Okay. What kind of attorney are you? Criminal attorney? How long you been doing that for?
Since 03. 10 years in November.
10, sir?
I said it'll be 10 years in November.
Okay. All right. So because what you're saying is you just don't want me to look in your car just because. It's not that you're hiding anything?
No, I'm not hiding anything. I'm just exercising my rights. You know, I mean, you would agree that I haven't done anything wrong.
Yes, sir. You drove on an improved shoulder.
Well, I did not. Which one is the approved shoulder?
Right here.
And I came all the way over here.
Yes, sir.
When? Like, right there or all the way back there when I see you?
Do what now?
I said, right there or all the way back there when I see you?
2 times. All the way back there when you saw me. Like you said, you was looking at me.
No,
people, when they look, they do lose the steering in their car, and you'll see them. You'll see them lead to the right or to the left.
All the way on the shoulder.
And then when I got up here and I was running you.
Because I'm black?
Nope.
Nope. Come on, man. I ain't no way I came all the way on the shoulder, man.
Okay.
But I understand. I mean, most people in authority positions, they don't like it when someone exercises their rights.
No. Why would I not like that?
I don't know.
That's perfect. That's perfectly fine.
It should be.
Yes, and that is perfectly fine.
It should be.
But when someone asks to look in the vehicle or search the vehicle right there and someone refuses, I would say a very high percentage of the time there's a reason why they don't want us to look in the vehicle. What I did is I called for a canine. Canine will come to the location, do a free air search around the car. I don't know what the dog. I'm not trained to tell you what the dog is or is not out of. Okay, all right. And I'm telling you, because I find it extremely unusual and suspicious that your demeanor.
I don't think my demeanor is wrong, but I mean that's cool. I'm not in a rush.
For the reason why I stopped you, it's a warning. No fines, no penalties, nothing goes on your driving record at all, okay? Get you the sign right there.
The last few hours, we learned that 2 Minneapolis police officers are on paid leave for allegedly decorating a Christmas tree at the 4th Precinct with a bunch of items that are viewed as racist. We have not been able to determine the authenticity or origin of this picture, but you can see it shows a tree decorated with menthol cigarettes, crime tape, malt liquor, Takis, and a cup from Popeye's Chicken. The situation adds insult to injury for a community already working to repair a fractured relationship with police. And tonight, both community activists and city leaders say more work needs to be done. Danny Spiewak is live outside the 4th Precinct with their responses. Danny?
Well, Julie, the photo from this 4th precinct first surfaced early this morning on both Facebook and on Twitter. And within hours, the NAACP chapter here, as well as a group of other community activists, were calling and demanding action from both the city of Minneapolis and the police department. And we've learned tonight 2 officers have been pulled off duty, still being paid, though, while an investigation continues.
Yeah, it's racist. There's no other way to look at it.
I believe that these decorations were an attack on the black community.
This is nothing new. It's just getting exposed.
To the African American community, the message coming from this Christmas tree is unmistakable.
In essence, they're calling us trash.
They say they're especially disheartened to see this on display in their own police department's building.
It's supposed to serve us and protect us, but instead they oppress.
In response to the photo, a group of activists are demanding the department fire officers responsible. They're also calling for sensitivity training and for more community involvement in the 4th precinct.
I don't blame them one bit for frustration and pain.
Mayor Jacob Fry said early in the day that whoever did it should be fired, but later acknowledged there's a process that needs to be followed. Chief Medaria Arredondo immediately started that process, launching an investigation and saying he was ashamed and appalled at what happened. In a statement, the chief said, the culture of the Minneapolis Police Department has undergone positive change. However, as this recent incident shows, we still have much work ahead.
It does set us back with people of color.
Michael Friesleben was once in charge of the 4th precinct before he retired last year. He says the Christmas display undermines the department's mission to repair relationships.
It's sad because it's so senseless, and there's so many efforts to connect with the community and gain trust.
I mean, whatever little bit that they had done so far, the members of the community that thought they could trust the police department now see that they can't.
It has to stop, and we ain't going nowhere until it does.
The tree has been removed here at the 4th precinct, and just to be crystal clear, the 2 officers have not been fired. They were placed on leave, taken off duty, and still being paid during an investigation that has a lot of layers to it. Internal Affairs is involved, so there's no timetable for when that investigation will wrap up. And I'll point out, too, we did reach out to the police union and did not get a response tonight.
Through the streets, white masks on our heads, blood beneath our feet. Laughing till they're dead, ha ha ha, first clan that was formed was 1865. Got shut down within 10 years, but we'll come back alive. Hey, KKK, KKK, let's kill all the blacks. Burn across on their front yard and hope they don't come back. Oh, KKK, KKK, no longer politics. Keeping civil rights in F is our true new world gift. White supremacy. Only got unmasked by John F. Kennedy. Recruiting dropped to none, but we cannot be stopped. It's far too fun, so come along and watch those black folk run. KKK, KKK, let's kill politics. Keeping civil rights inept is our new world gift. Now that we have left the country with these scars, there's no way they can go through school without hearing of us. Grand wizards left behind, one great big legacy. We're here to stay, big shoes to fill in this society. Oh, KKK, KKK, let's kill all the blacks. Burn across in their front yard.
And tonight, a Dover teacher on paid leave as that district investigates an assignment sparking controversy in the community tonight. A video of one group's project shows students singing about the KKK to the tune of Jingle Bells. WMUR's Jessica Moran is in Dover tonight with all the details.
Dover school officials are investigating the circumstances surrounding a video of students in a classroom singing about the KKK and killing black people. We spoke with one of the students involved in that assignment.
I want them to know that it was not our intention to offend anyone. We were simply trying to make a factual reference to the KKK and their history.
A Dover high school student trying to explain the video of him singing about the KKK, burning crosses, and killing black people. He says it was part of a school assignment. Dover High School's 11th grade U.S. history class was learning about the Reconstruction era after the Civil War. The student says he was assigned a project involving Jingle Bells and the KKK.
We were just trying to bring to light the terrible history of the KKK and about what they did to, well, just people throughout all of history.
In a portion of the video, you can hear students laughing. The student we spoke with said the laughter wasn't about the contents of the song, but about the strange situation surrounding the class project. More than one student involved said the teacher told them not to record the projects, but one did just that, saying she was offended.
Ignorance, it's very rampant here, and I think people just need to learn how to address these things better. And I don't want any like ill intent on the student. I know the kid and he's a good kid, but I think the way he presented that information was totally wrong. And I said it. I had to walk out because I was so frustrated.
School officials are investigating and determining if anyone involved should be disciplined.
This is definitely not the culture or climate that we want in a school. We want a place where all students feel safe, feel accepted, and are honored for who they are and what they bring to scenarios.
Superintendent Harbron says the principal has already met with the students in that classroom, and they are currently planning on how to meet with the rest of the students.
All right, and we back on the forecast. Now, the slave codes were designed to break us down and dehumanize us. And not just men, but women and children. I mean, they literally use babies as alligator bait. These psychopaths would rape women and get them pregnant and then enslave their own children. Yet we still thought we could reason with them. As a collective, we've always tried the most peaceful, safe way to try to change their minds. We accepted them with open arms and gave them gifts from the very first day we seen them. And the problem is, hundreds of years later, we're still doing the same thing. We still embrace them with open arms no matter what they do to us. And then they turn around and use their dominance to prove a point about how powerless you are. And the part I don't understand is we continue to allow ourselves to be powerless. In 1670, the Puritan righteous Pilgrims in Massachusetts was the first one to pass a law making it legal to sell children. From that day on, and really before that, but from that day on, it should have been liberty or death. And it was hundreds and hundreds of rebellions, but too many of us went with the program. Then for centuries, we watched them rip babies away from black women. And we stood there helpless, or at least thinking we were helpless. They took babies away and sold them, and you would never see them again. They even split women open and took the baby out of the womb. And we stood there helpless, just watching, whether we outnumbered the enemy or not. And now today, we can see the police harm a woman and her children, and all we can do is stand there and watch helpless and try to record it. And even though the internet leveled the playing field, it doesn't matter to them. They can still do what they want. And recording something doesn't mean anything if you aren't ready to take action. In New York, the young sister with her baby in the Social Security office, Jazmine Headly, she was harassed, arrested, and had her baby ripped away from her arms because she made the mistake of sitting on the floor.
Oh my God!
There are probably no words to console Jazmine Headly, the 23-year-old mother who went to a Brooklyn food stamp office for help and ended up in jail. Her 1-year-old son brutally pulled from her arms by cops, but Human Resources Commissioner Steve Banks said he would like to try.
I would certainly say to her as a parent, I apologize that you went through this horrible situation in one of our offices. We're reinforcing that our offices are to be a place where people get a helping hand, not the back of the hand.
On orders from Mayor de Blasio, Commissioner Banks and NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill are trying to figure out what needs to happen so such a violent incident never happens again. So what went wrong?
I think the situation for this young mother could have been de-escalated. There could have been interventions that didn't allow it to get to this point.
In this case, de-escalation may be a code word, meaning HRA workers should be trained to handle situations without having to exacerbate tensions by calling the cops. Step one for Commissioner Banks will be
directing immediate retraining in how to de-escalate situations like this.
Council Speaker Corey Johnson says everybody's actions need to be evaluated.
It's sort of a confluence of the systemic issues that really plague our city, and I think a pretty unfair, uneven, and disturbing way.
Some say Jazmine Headly is a symbol of how the poor are treated, but the initial probe shows the incident was not easy to defuse. The two HRA peace officers who were put on modified duty after the incident were both injured, sources say, one of them bitten. Sources say NYPD body-worn camera video shows the HRA officers bringing the woman to the ground as the cops try to defuse the situation. The NYPD probe, sources say, is looking at a number of issues. The taser waved around by one cop, and whether the officers from both agencies should have cleared the room, used better crowd control before dealing with the young woman.
I don't know what justification can be given for that video where you see the officer multiple times trying to rip the baby away from Jazmine Headly, a 1-year-old child, a taser that is close to her head.
Well, we've also learned that Headly initially waited for about an hour to see an HRA caseworker. Her wait became more prolonged because she insisted on seeing a supervisor who had a long wait list. HRA officials are trying to reduce wait times by getting more clients to apply online.
Now, this woman who had waited for 4 hours with a 1-year-old committed the crime of getting tired and sitting down on the floor. And I'm sure after 4 hours, the baby was getting heavy. So then a security guard goes over and confronts her because he claims she was sitting in front of a hallway. And I'm pretty sure she wasn't blocking anybody. And nobody actually complained. But it was nowhere else to sit. So because she got tired and simply sat down on the floor, she didn't get loud or disruptive. She just sat down. The security guard decided to call the police. Now, when the police got there, she tried to explain her story, but the police wasn't trying to hear it. They just cut her off and started trying to take her baby. And they were yanking this baby like it was her pocketbook or something. They started pulling the baby forcefully and violently. And they easily could have hurt her baby. And then they put a taser to her face, and after wrestling with her for a while, they finally got the baby out of her arms. Then they charged her for resisting an arrest, acting in a demeanor injurious to the child, obstructing governmental operations, and trespassing. They said she was the one that was dangerous to her child, and they actually put a restraining order on her, and she couldn't even go near her own baby. Now, although they did release her, mostly because of public outrage, and a couple years ago before people recorded it, she may still be in jail and away from her kid, and they may have even taken her kid away from her. But after a couple days in jail, they did release her and drop all the charges. Of course, they still had to find some way to justify it, and the police tried to blame the security guard for everything.
Good evening, guys. Well, the past few days have truly been a roller coaster of emotion for Jazmine Headly. The Brooklyn mom arrived here just a short time ago with a big smile on her face. This is after she resolved not one, but 2 legal matters. And she's reunited with her 1-year-old son tonight, both of them 2 subjects of a very, very disturbing and now viral incident that is still under investigation. How do you feel, Jazmine? A smiling Jazmine Headly is breathing a sigh of relief tonight after notching 2 major legal hurdles in a matter of 24 hours.
I'm just so grateful to everyone, and I'm just happy to be free.
A day after the Brooklyn DA dropped all charges against her in connection with a disturbing encounter at a government benefits office where NYPD officers ripped her 1-year-old son out of her hands. A judge in New Jersey followed suit, also dropping charges against Headly in an unrelated 2016 credit card fraud case. As part of the agreement in that case, she will pay back $1,000 and will need to complete 20 hours of community service.
Release her now! Release her now!
Headly's arrest ignited a firestorm across the city, raising questions around the conduct of police officers and whether their use of force was warranted. The incident, which all started when Headly sat on the floor because of the lack of seats in the office, is still under investigation. The Patrolmen's Benevolent Association is sticking by the police officers, appearing to pin the blame on security officers at the Human Resources Administration Office.
Once that HRA officer grabbed that woman who was attempting to leave and put her to the ground, police officers had no choice but to try to protect that baby.
Mayor de Blasio also came out in defense of the police officers, acknowledging that the situation at the office had already spiraled out of control before NYPD arrived.
It's as simple as this. She was not presenting a danger. She was a mother with a child. There was no reason for anyone to get physical.
In addition to offering her apology, Mayor de Blasio said he wants to help Headly out by expediting the whole benefits process so she does not have to return to the HRA offices. He also said that he wants to meet with her at some point. Now, we did put a call out to the mayor's office to find out when that will take place. We have yet to hear back.
Now, after this backlash, they did let her get her child back. And who knows how things would have turned out if it didn't go viral. But there were black cops involved in this. There were black women cops involved in this. And with the history of this country, why would any black woman rip a child away from another black woman? Especially while you're on duty, being sponsored by the state. There are countless black women who have had their children ripped away from them and never got justice and never saw them again. I don't see how we as a collective, as black people, continue to let that happen, but especially a black cop. But it doesn't matter what kind of cop you are. If you're a black cop, or any kind of quote-unquote good cop, the police are designed to uphold the structure of white supremacy, not go against it. Those black cops wouldn't dare do that to a white woman with a baby in her arms. I don't care if she's in a trailer park doing a bonfire. No black cop will ever get away with doing that to a white woman with a baby. A white cop wouldn't even get away with doing that to a white woman with a baby. But despite the history that we have, a black person can do that to another black person while they're sponsored by the state. But we're so quick to try to conform to this system, to try to be a part of this system. We love to welcome everybody with open arms. We look at them like they can do no wrong, so we blame the victim. We let people like Bill Gates go over to Africa and call it philanthropy. Meanwhile, he's talking about depopulation.
On leaving Microsoft, Bill Gates bought $23 million of Monsanto shares. Globally, he now promotes GMOs and a vaccines collection he calls the solution for the world. Gates has been recorded explaining this solution is actually to cut the world's population.
Now, the world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. The density in the poor areas is greater than they can grow the food. The benefits there in terms of reducing the population growth.
The only vaccines that reduce the population, notes the site Prison Planet, are ones that sterilize people. The BBC says his foundation's funding big sterilization programs such as this one that blasts men's scrotums with ultrasound to damage the sperm. Here Gates actually calls for the so-called death panels to decide whether folks should live or whether, as he puts it, they have no benefit whatsoever.
And a lack of willingness to say, you know, is spending $1 million on that last 3 months of life for that patient, would it be better to see which ones actually have no benefit whatsoever? But that's called the death panel. And you're not supposed to have that discussion.
Anthony Gates actually brags he's doing God's work. The boss of Goldman Sachs said exactly the same thing while sending millions into starvation. What the heck is going on?
His father was one of the main grandfathers of the whole entire eugenics movement here inside the United States. And it's still going strong today.
My dad was head of Planned Parenthood. And it was very controversial.
And Bill Gates is here once again pushing the GMOs and everything else that is also reducing the population, because that's what he says. If we do a good enough job with vaccinations and everything, we'll be able to reduce the population. The polio vaccines now are the #1 cause of polio. There's no question that Bill Gates is not doing God's work. And if he is doing God's work, I would ask, which God?
Yeah, how have we moved to open plans to take away our water, hoarding food, and population controls?
They speak to us as if we are peon peasants in medieval times, and they are the kings, queens, and nobles. Why did they target the low-income portions?
Yeah, May 25th, over 2 million people across 48 states and 6 continents marched against Monsanto. What do you make of the company refusing to talk to us because we covered the march?
They can't stand up to the facts. They wouldn't come on this show. I would love to debate a Monsanto employee and show them that email. I mean, what would they say? They have nothing. They go into these poor communities and then, of course, reduced yields. So what happens to these farmers? They end up killing themselves by drinking the biopesticides that Monsanto gave them. So every 30 minutes, while we've been talking, someone has killed themselves.
Execs now boast about infertility from GMOs, hoard food, and say water shouldn't be a human right. Monsanto has publicly stated it wants to control 100% of the world's food supply. The government isn't stopping them, so who will?
Now, Bill and Malinda Gates have been going over to Africa for decades, taking pictures with children in poverty. Never mind the fact it's Europeans that cause the most economic damage to those areas. But they take a couple of pictures and we call them humanitarians. Meanwhile, he's doing who knows what kind of experiments on men, women, and children over there. He already got kicked out of Kenya for sterilizing the people. And he lied about it. And India kicked him out too. And he's investing all of this money into vaccines, talking about making people healthier to depopulate the planet. Bill Gates' father used to be one of the head people for Planned Parenthood. Bill Gates grew up around that. The feminist Susan B. Anthony started it to kill black people. And his father is one of the main people in charge. And here he is all these years later with the Bill and Malinda Gates Foundation all over in Africa, claiming to be helping the people when he's really lying and trying to sterilize the people and eventually kill off the people. But if Bill Gates is so concerned about the population, Europeans already have a negative birth rate. Just let nature play out. Give your children the shot you was giving to people in Kenya. But he's not investing his money into depopulating European countries. He wants to depopulate the poorer countries. But you don't see him in Bulgaria or Ukraine or in Russia somewhere. You see him in African countries. And instead of donating his money to giving them clean water or healthy food, he's investing his money into viruses to depopulate African countries. But him and his wife Melinda take a picture with a couple of poor Africans and he's a philanthropist. When really he should be brought up on crimes against humanity. He sterilized people without their consent or their knowledge and against their will. So much so he got kicked out of the country. He donates money that could lead to their genocide and they prop him up as if they're helping them, like he's their hero or some kind of savior. And we, just like on day number 1, open them with welcome arms and give them whatever gifts we can find. But at the end of the day, until we can trust ourselves and until we love ourselves and until we find enough motivation in the fact that we want to protect our children so they won't be alligator bait or killed for having a hood on and their hands in their pocket, then we can expect to continue to get the same results.
One issue that really grabbed me as urgent were issues related to population, reproductive health.
But did you come to reproductive issues as an intellectual?
When I was growing up, my parents were always involved in various volunteer things. My dad was head of Planned Parenthood, and it was very controversial to be involved with that.
There's been a lot of scrutiny of vaccines recently, specifically childhood vaccines. There's been a lot of news about, is there a connection with autism, for example? What do you make of all that? Dr. Wakefield wrote a paper about this saying that he thought there was a connection. And there was lower vaccination rates as a result for a period of time in Britain than the United States. What are your thoughts?
Well, Dr. Wakefield has been shown used absolutely fraudulent data. He had a financial interest in some lawsuits. He created a fake paper. The journal allowed it to run. All the other studies were done, showed no connection whatsoever, again and again and again. And so it's an absolute lie that has killed thousands of kids, because the mothers who heard that lie, many of them didn't have their kids take either pertussis or measles vaccine, and their children are dead today. And so, the people who go and engage in those anti-vaccine efforts, they kill children. It's a very sad thing because these vaccines are important. This equation has 4 factors, a little bit of multiplication. So you've got a thing on the left, CO2, that you want to get to 0. And that's going to be based on the number of people, the services each person's using on average, the energy on average for each service, and the CO2 being put out per unit of energy. So let's look at each one of these and see how we can get this down to 0. Probably one of these numbers is going to have to get pretty near to 0. That's back from high school algebra. But let's take a look. First, we've got population. The world today has 6.8 billion people. That's headed up to about 9 billion. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. Now, if we do a really great job on new vaccines, health care, reproductive health services, we could lower that by perhaps 10 or 15%. But there we see an increase of about 1.3. The second factor is the services we use. This encompasses everything: the food we eat, clothing, TV, heating. These are very good things. Getting rid of poverty means providing these services to almost everyone on the planet. And it's a great thing for this number to go up.
They took an oath to serve and protect the people of St. Louis. But tonight, 4 city police officers are off the job after they were indicted on federal felony charges. Good evening, I'm Mike Bush.
And I'm Ann Allred. The charges stem from last year's violent protest that followed last year's acquittal of former officer Jason Stockley. Our investigative reporter Jacob Long covered that story for us in 2017. And tonight, he's live outside the federal courthouse with a look at the evidence. Jacob.
Well, Mike and Ann, the evidence in this case is certainly eye-opening to say the least. We're talking about a series of text messages between these 4 officers that talk about how they were actually excited and looking forward to inflicting excessive force on the Jason Stockley protesters, including one of their own, a fellow city officer. Tonight, this alleged behavior being condemned by city officials across the board who say the officers need to be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law.
September 17th, 2017. For a third night, protests erupted in St. Louis after the acquittal of former police officer Jason Stockley in the shooting death of Anthony Lamar Smith. Officers Dustin Boone, Randy Hayes, Christopher Myers, and Bailey Coletta were all assigned to a protest response unit called the Civil Disobedience Team. According to a federal indictment made public on Thursday, the 4 city officers have been charged with various felony charges, including civil rights violations, destruction of evidence, and obstruction of justice. According to the indictment, text messages show that Boone, Hayes, and Myers expressed disdain for the Stockley protesters and excitement about using unjustified force against them. In one exchange, Boone wrote, quote, "It's gonna get ignorant tonight, but it's gonna be a lot of fun beating the expletive out of these expletives once the sun goes down and nobody can tell us apart." In another, Boone writes, quote, "We really need these expletives to start acting up so we can have some fun." And in another text, Boone wrote, quote, "It's still a blast beating people that deserve it, and I'm not one of the people hurt, so I'm still enjoying each night." Boone, Hayes, and Myers are also accused of using excessive force and beating up an undercover city police officer who's also a 22-year veteran of the force that was assigned that same night to cover the protests. Coletta, meantime, who the indictment says was in a romantic relationship with Hayes at the time, allegedly lied about it all when testifying before the grand jury. Together, the 4 officers range in age from 27 to 35 and have a combined experience with the city of nearly 15 years. But now they are all on unpaid administrative leave.
Now, it's important to point out that after these allegations of brutality first surfaced last year, the city's the one who asked the Justice Department to step in and investigate. And these charges tonight are the result of that lengthy, extensive FBI investigation. Some of the charges carrying a maximum penalty of 20 years in prison. And the fallout tonight just beginning. We've heard from the circuit attorney in St. Louis who says because of the 4 officers, they've had to dismiss more than 90 cases already.
The Coral Springs Police Department conducting an internal investigation after a group of officers is accused of using excessive force. A troubling tape appearing to show the officer kicking a handcuffed suspect at 7th and Callaway reports.
7 News obtaining alarming video showing a troubling police takedown. You can see 3 Coral Springs police officers struggling to pin down and arrest Gabriel Narcisse Beckford. Police say he was arrested for shoplifting. After he calms down, officers walk him to the curb where he sits. That's when it appears one of the officers kicks the handcuffed suspect.
Could not believe that this was actually happening in front of me.
A 7 News viewer who asked to remain anonymous recorded the actions of the officer on his cell phone. The incident happening at Sample Road and Northwest 81st Avenue in Coral Springs Tuesday night. The witness describes what he saw as sickening.
One of the officers tased him to the ground. He was telling him to put his hand behind his back. He was in handcuffs. He was cooperating. Everything was good. And then another officer came and then he kicked him in the head, straight to his face.
Narcisse Beckford appearing in bond court Wednesday, charged with battery to an officer and resisting arrest with violence. Police say he was arrested shortly after stealing from the store. A clerk at that store tells 7 News he stole a drink and candy.
So I called him, hey, yo, come back, you gotta pay for that, or either pay or return the things, but he just walked away and left. That's it.
Coral Springs police quickly responding to the cell phone video. The department releasing a statement that reads in part, quote, "We take this matter very seriously. Due to the gravity of the situation, we are conducting a criminal investigation. At this time, all officers involved have been placed on administrative leave." As for the witness who saw the incident firsthand, he says he's thankful he was there in the right place at the right time.
This video was not shot. You know, this officer probably would have said this never happened. This guy did not deserve to get kicked in his head while he was on the ground.
And Coral Springs police say they plan to release more information on the incident later today.
Me too, but then I swear to God.
Whitehead, what are you doing, man?
What did I do, bro?
I ain't never had a problem. Why you gonna spit on us? Sergeants come around. You know how this is. Just take this.
I just had to take a shit, bro. I swear to God,
just
bro.
take the fucking strings down.
I just need to take a shit.
That's all she was gonna do.
All I need, bro. You know I don't give y'all problems like that, bro. I do not give you problems like that, Schwartz, bro. You know bro.
All you had to do was take the strings down, dude.
I'll take them down next time, bro. Y'all ain't have no problem with me, bro. I swear to God, bro. You know, second shift, bro. You know, I try my hardest.
Keep your leg down. Keep your leg down.
I try my hardest, you feel me? Cause y'all treat us right. You feel me? On everything.
I give y'all double trades every day and everything.
This ain't right here, though. On my mama.
You need medical?
This ain't, nah, bro. I'm straight. I don't want no medical.
You want decon out your eyes?
I need shit out my eyes, though. Sure. Ain't no young guy, though, bro.
I'll come back and talk to you.
Hey, him.
A Texas judge accepting a plea bargain from a former Baylor University student accused of raping a woman at a fraternity party. The deal allows Jacob Anderson to plead to a lesser charge of unlawful restraint and avoid jail time, sparking outrage from his victim and marking the 3rd time this judge has approved probation for men accused of sexual assault. Casey Stiegel is live in Dallas with the latest. Tell us more, Casey.
Well, Dana, the victim says in court that she is, quote, devastated by the judge's decision, and that the judge here, again quoting her, saying that he's allowing a rapist to walk free without serving any jail time, any real punishment at all. She is talking about this guy, Jacob Walter Anderson, who under yesterday's plea deal was allowed to plead no contest to unlawful restraint. That is a much lesser charge compared to what he was originally indicted for, multiple counts of sexual assault, for what allegedly happened at an off-campus party back in 2016 when the former Baylor student says she was drugged at a fraternity party and raped multiple times by Anderson. After internal review, he was expelled from Baylor, though the local district attorney's office, in defending this deal, says evidence did not support the victim's drugging allegation.
He nearly choked her to death. He raped her violently. He left her passed out in her own vomit.
The rape exam confirmed rape.
Judge Ralph Struthers presides over the 19th District Court down in McLennan County, Texas. Well, last year, after pleading guilty to a 2013 rape of a student, Judge Struthers gave another man probation and ordered him to pay for the women's counseling. He also allowed another man earlier this year accused of sexual assault to spend his jail time on weekends. So this is a controversial decision, the third one. We're going to wait to see what happens down there in Waco, Texas.
I started collecting racist objects when I was a teenager, and the stuff was everywhere. At a certain point, I ended up with thousands of pieces. I didn't know what I would do with it. I just thought a lot about what it meant to be a person of color living during Jim Crow. Had no intention of creating a museum, but the collection kept growing. So in the 1990s, I gave my collection to the university. It took 15 years, but in 2012, we opened this museum. I have lots of respect for museums that celebrate African American history, that celebrate African American accomplishment, but that's not what this facility was. I wanted to create an actual racism facility, to have people focused on this specific topic in terms of our history. So if you just have a society with millions of just postcards like this, does that reinforce certain ideas about black people and white people? Some of the best discussions we have in the museum are about the word nigger, which sounds kind of weird, by the way, because I'm a sociologist and we don't believe words have any inherent meaning. They're just sound signs that we give. But we do believe that people, once the meanings are given, that they are shared.
I mean, no piece is inherently racist. It's a racist society which will create racist objects and will racialize other objects. That's why the watermelon has a racial. There's nothing inherent about a watermelon that makes it racist, but you know darn well that it's been racialized.
Someone looking at Aunt Jemima objects or other mammy images, they don't think of that as offensive. They think of good times spent with their families. It's very nostalgic. Someone else looking at those same pieces, they see the vestiges of slavery and segregation. So often we're not deciding that something is racist, but what we are doing are collecting pieces that help us talk about racism. We have lots of friends of the museum, and we receive hundreds of pieces a year. The first director of the museum said to me one day, hey, there's a couple guys I want you to meet.
Here we go. Here's some Jim Crow related materials. These are the dolls. And some of them are older, some are newer.
These are like 1950s.
This is
male
cute.
and female.
Yeah, those are really interesting.
They are. Our group of friends were all collecting this because we realized what it said about our society and what it said about where we were in the past and where maybe we still were. When we met David Pilgrim and the whole Jim Crow Museum and all of that, it was like, finally, there's a place where we can put this.
A sense of relief that we could let go of these objects so other people could learn from it.
We have some understanding of bigotry. We have some understanding of being the outsider or not being accepted or being told that we are not welcomed, we can't be accepted, you have no place here. I think because we've experienced that in our own lives, because we're gay, there's a little transference there to trying to help understand the even bigger question of bigotry and then likewise racism. Wow, this is really racist. This is an ashtray where the black washerwoman, she has her one breast stuck in the wringer and so she's hollering. My God, that's also sexist. I think the Jim Crow would love that.
This is the Jim Crow. This is on multiple levels. This is a wonderful piece.
Once we finally discovered the Jim Crow Museum, it gave us more impetus to go out and find, collect, save.
They now have at least 500 things from us. By collecting those things, we get a broader picture of how racism continued all the way up into the 60s and 70s and still continues. I've seen things about President Obama that were horrible.
I think people who go to the Jim Crow Museum are often surprised when they see something from 2015 as racist as many of the things from 100 years ago. And we've had friends who are a complete mess after they've left because suddenly they've been confronted with the truth.
For many years when I traveled, I would say that the United States, despite this history of enslavement and Jim Crow, that we are today more democratic and more egalitarian than we've ever been. And I stopped saying that about 2 years ago. I'm not suggesting that we are back in the Jim Crow period. Don't get it twisted. It's not like that. But what I am saying is I hear and see a level of racist rhetoric that is reminiscent of when I was growing up in Alabama under Governor George Wallace. People say they don't want to talk about race, but they're doing it all the time. But they're not talking about it in places where their ideas can be challenged.
Oh, no. I know who you are. You have to leave. I'm not interested in you taking a video of me. Stop. Leave right now. Leave.
Oh my God.
You leave right now.
Jessica.
I know who you are. Oh, yes. Thank you.
Jessica.
Can you get out of here?
Oh, shit.
I have encountered you before, Mount Vernon. You are a fucking nasty person in our neighborhood. We do not want you in our neighborhood. You are a terrorist in our neighborhood, making us look bad. Leave now. Please leave.
My God. Oh my. You guys, can I just say,
He is a nasty bitch, and we don't want him in our neighborhood doing this shit to us because it makes places like this look bad, and people don't want to be harassed, so fucking leave.
I need you. I don't like your breath.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Hold on, guys.
Oh, your breath is nasty. Oh, you're bald. Oh, I'm making fun of you because I'm not funny.
Okay.
You're not funny. Just leave.
I need you
I know who you
to sit
are.
down, please.
Okay.
Sit
I'm
down.
not sitting down.
As soon as you got up, a whiff of you just went across the whole restaurant. Can I just tell you guys
No, we don't want it. No, leave.
Hey, sir, we're gonna call the police if you don't leave in 5
Don't
seconds.
call the police. I'm fucking calling 911. I go to the safety room. They told us to call 911 in your ass, and I'm getting
Why are you crying?
I'm gonna count to 0.
What is that? What?
Get the fuck out. I'm not the person who cut your hair like that. Stop being mad at me. Stop it. No. Sit the hell down.
Miss Marquise.
Hey, guys,
Marquise?
just go.
Yeah, there it is.
I know who the fuck you are.
But bro.
Huh?
The police are coming.
Is a dentist coming?
Can we both move this way?
What is wrong?
Why do you think you have the right to tell somebody to stop grabbing you?
Because this is my.
In here,
because I
harassing
thought.
us.
Because I thought this was my hood.
Well, it's not, bro.
That's it.
It's not.
It's a restaurant.
Darkness.
This is private property.
Darkness.
All right, and we back on the forecast. And I want to say RP to the brother Jonathan Hart. And luckily that young sister Jazmine Headly is with her baby and they're both okay. But we have to realize the slave codes, it was here before America, and it's the backbone of America. This is what America was built off of. America said, you are what your mother is. So if your mother is a black woman, then you are a slave. And they can take your children right out of your arms in front of everybody, and nobody does anything. All people can do is stand and watch. No other group is in the position that we are in. We are the only group that did not choose to come over here. We were kidnapped and forced to come over here. And this country couldn't exist if they never did it. We need to stop worrying about everybody else's problems. We can't help everybody else if we can't help ourselves. We fight for us and every other special interest group to be accepted by the dominant society. And in turn, those special interest groups turn around and shit on us so they could be accepted by the dominant society. But at some point, we are going to realize we are all we got. I don't know how long it's going to take, but we don't have any other choice. But as always, man, we have got to start standing for something, or we're going to keep falling for anything.